When it comes to Christmas movies, I feel like they fall into three categories. The classics that are celebrated every year, whose logos and characters get slapped on every piece of merchandise imaginable. Not that I'd know anything about that. And then there are the cult classics, usually movies that bring new interpretations and ideas to Christmas lore. And then there's everything else. Christmas movies that get neither marketing tie-ins nor midnight screenings, but still deserve praise for their, let's just say, earnestness. It's been a long time since we talked about Ernest P. Worrell.
As the twig is bent, so grows the tree. Know what I mean?
One of my earliest videos on this channel was a deep dive into the career and life of the actor that brought Ernest to life, Jim Varney, highlighting his journey from TV pitchman to full-fledged movie star. But honestly, every film in the Ernest series deserves to be discussed at length. So let's dive back in with Ernest Saves Christmas.
I'm at one with the Yuletide, know what I mean?
Released in 1988, this was the second of the whopping 9 Ernest movies.
Surprised?
One of my favorite elements of these movies is just how varied each one was from the previous installment, something that began with the first sequel.
Know what I mean?
In a way that harkens back to the Three Stooges shorts, each film placed Ernest in a new setting, working a new job with new ambitions and new supporting characters. Sometimes elements reappeared, like his dog Rimshot, but for the most part, in each Ernest movie there were only 3 constants: jeans, a denim vest, and a khaki cap.
I like lots and lots of butter with mine, don't you?
When we last left Ernest P. Worrell in 1987, he had thwarted an evil mining company's ploy to demolish a summer camp in Tennessee. But now, just a year later, we find Ernest working as a cab driver during the busy holiday season in Orlando, Florida.
You can keep your channel number 5. Just give me a whiff of the old lonesome pine. That symbol of brotherly love.
A big reason for the location switch was so that the movie could be the first filmed at the soon-to-be-completed Disney's MGM Studios.
Is this where the horror movie folk be?
Now known as Disney's Hollywood Studios, the area was originally conceived to be both a theme park and a fully functional movie studio, where guests could get a behind-the-scenes look at real film productions.
We've created a state-of-the-art motion picture and television studio that rivals anything in Hollywood.
You could actually still see the residential neighborhood that was built for this movie on the studio's backlot tour until it was demolished in 2003.
I know what we need, Vern. Bolt cutters.
Then Disney CEO Michael Eisner became interested in producing Ernest movies after seeing him garner a bigger response than Mickey Mouse at the Indy 500 in 1985.
Yuck it up. He happens to be a close, personal friend of mine.
In a business move that would never happen today, Eisner allowed Ernest's creator, John Cherry, to maintain control of the character, with Disney basically licensing Ernest for the movies.
Now I'm in the groove. Now I am at one with the magic.
But while Ernest Goes to Camp was a basic camp story, sort of a kid's version of Meatballs, its financial success allowed the creatives to introduce more fantastical elements into the second movie.
That ought to do it.
Something that each subsequent sequel built upon. Well, until Disney bailed after the 4th movie, and the budgets got significantly reduced.
Wow, public library. We'll stay here for a while, Vern.
Now we have to move on to what I like to call Plan B.
As the story begins, Ernest has picked up a passenger who just so happens to be Santa Claus.
Did he say Santa Claus?
I think so.
He has come to Orlando, Florida in order to convince a local children's performer named Joe to fill his shoes, as this Santa is ready to retire, finding himself becoming more forgetful in his old age.
That's life for you.
British actor Douglas Seal portrays Santa Claus, having previously done so on an episode of Amazing Stories.
Because you look like him?
Because I am him.
Because you am him. Well, how about that?
Yeah.
And it's one of the most refreshing takes on a character that's been a major part of pop culture for over a century.
Hey!
Douglas plays Santa less like the booming, boisterous version we've come to know, and more like a quiet yet charming grandfather.
Trust people. It pays off more often than you think.
He even works his charm on a secretary that he meets. I sure hope her husband didn't find out. In addition to Santa, Ernest also befriends a teenage runaway named Harmony.
Like, you believe all this stuff, all this Christmas, Santa Claus, fa la 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 la.
Of course I believe.
And the two of them have to work together to spring Santa from jail.
This is a surprise inspection, Chief.
Now, wait just a minute.
And convince Joe to don the red suit. Though I guess all of this could have been avoided had Santa just shaken Joe's hand earlier.
What we've got here is a failure to accumulate.
The movie also features the first big screen appearance of supporting characters Chuck and Bobby.
Oh, ain't that right, Bobby?
First introduced in the Ernest Saturday Morning TV series, played by Gaylord Sartain and Bill Burge. As I've discussed in other videos on the topic, most Ernest movies had a variation of these characters, an homage to classic comedy teams like Laurel and Hardy.
Anytime I want something done right, I always have to do it myself.
I guess if you want things done right, you gotta do it yourself.
Though they weren't always played by the same actors. Here's a quick refresher course. In Ernest Goes to Camp, there were camp chefs, Jake and Eddie, played by Gaylord Sartain and Ernest writer Dan Butler. Then came Chuck and Bobby in the TV series Ernest Saves Christmas and Ernest Goes to Jail. In Ernest Scared Stupid, we got Tom and Bobby. I guess Gaylord Sartain was unavailable, hence this bargain bin version of him.
Have I got a deal for you?
In Ernest Rides Again, there was Frank and Joe, played by two actors we'd never seen before. Bill Burge returned in Ernest Goes to School with a female partner played by Linda Cash.
Bobby, there is something real significant going on here.
Then, in Ernest in the Army, the two actors from Rides Again came back inexplicably. Gaylord Sartain did reunite with director John Cherry, however, playing actual Oliver Hardy in his 1999 remake attempt, and thus concludes the Ernest duo saga. Anyway, Chuck and Bobby were the best iteration of these characters, demonstrated in their scenes here as airport workers trying to wrangle Santa's reindeer.
Okay. Call me cautious if you want to. But better safe than sorry.
This is also the only Ernest movie to feature his neighbor Vern, who we never saw directly, just always Ernest from his perspective.
Ho, 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 Vern. Mary.
I thought you said this Vern was a friend of yours.
Oh, Vern's just like that. He'll do anything for a laugh.
Including him in the movie doesn't feel forced though, and his scene is a reminder of why the Ernest commercials were so popular. Truly, Jim Varney is the star here though.
You'll notice that I am using my emergency signal indicators when in reverse.
In my video on his career, I talked about how he had ambitions to break free of Ernest and take on more character roles. But ironically enough, each Ernest movie really allowed him to showcase just how many characters he was able to bring to life.
Clement here, Asta Clement. I'm with the Governor's State Correctional Institutional Prisoner Fair Treatment Task Force.
My favorite Ernest alter ego has always been Auntie Nelda.
Me, a lonely old woman forced to cope in a world of indifference.
For the sheer way Varney is able to contort his face when in character. In playing Ernest, he was able to be a character actor.
Careful now. They be poison. Poison snake.
I swear there's even a meta moment where Santa breaks the fourth wall and seems to be emphasizing this directly to Varney.
You don't get rich by doing a once-a-week children's program on local television. You've got to do it for other reasons.
Overall, Ernest Saves Christmas may not hold a candle to the other Christmas comedy hits that came out before and after it, but there is something very charming about a modestly budgeted holiday comedy that doesn't take itself too seriously.
I think those are Latvian goats.
It ended up being the highest grossing film in the entire series.
By now he must be rolling in the mucho dinero.
And it really laid the groundwork for the crazier Ernest stories that were to follow. The credit really goes to the Disney of the 1980s.
Mr. Funtime.
For prioritizing these types of small movies, and for giving a small group of filmmakers from Nashville creative control to make a movie as unique as Ernest Saves Christmas.
It's time for the Three Musketeers to saddle up and ride to glory. Know what I mean?
And also for making it available on Disney+.
I gotta go.
I've got sugar plums dancing in my head as we speak.